And there's a big knowledge gap if you're not looking and utilizing your financials to what you think is happening and what is actually happening. I'll use an easy example. I know my product, if I sell it for $100, I pay $5, I'm making $95. When it's like, well, you're not thinking about some of the other costs, the shipping of the product, or you're forgetting about the fees that you have to pay. Then they're saying, well, I'm going to have this amount of cash. And it's like, no, you're actually going to have less. And now you've made a decision based off thinking you're going to have too much cash. And that's what's hard to see when you're not laying it out.
Hey guys, welcome to episode number 156 of the Game On Girlfriend podcast. Today's guest is Lauren Colson of Colson Strategies. She is a number geek with people skills. I don't really know how else to describe her. She's wonderful. Lauren is actually one of the guest experts that I bring into the Sales Mastermind. And every time I bring her in, all the participants get so excited. She is so crystal clear about accounting and bookkeeping. Like, she just helps people understand this is not something to be afraid of. It is so empowering to understand well. And I think she's got this really cool down-to-earth way of talking about money and accounting and bookkeeping. And my favorite, of course, is projections, right? About what's possible in your business when you have the power of this knowledge. She takes the mystery out of it. She makes it fun. She makes it easy to understand and empowers us all with the tools we need to run a financially healthy business. So if you've been wondering a little bit about this, is it time to get a bookkeeper? Is it not? Especially as this podcast is airing, it's the end of the year. This is the time for you to decide whether or not it's time to get a bookkeeper and it's time to get your numbers in order. Or if you're not happy with your bookkeeper, is it time to change? This is the time to look at this and really understand what's happened in the last year and then get super excited about what's coming up next year. All right. So without further ado, pop in those earphones and let's get to it. Lauren, welcome to the Game On Girlfriend podcast. It's actually kind of fun to have you on here today.
Yes, I'm so excited.
So you do something that scares the heck out of most people, and that is that you deal with numbers, you deal with accounting, and you deal with the bottom line. So I have to ask you, can you please share with us how you started doing this and why this is the thing that you do in the world?
Back in college, I didn't know what I wanted to major in. I knew I was good at math, but I didn't know. A family member recommended engineering, gave that a try. That was a hard no. And so there's numbers in accounting. And so I was like, I'll give it a go. I didn't even really know what accounting was. But I enjoyed it and I was good at it and I liked it. So then that naturally led itself to a full-time job in the accounting field, which I started out in these corporate, large publicly traded companies, which was great from the sense I got a lot of technical accounting experience, but it wasn't really exciting. It wasn't fun. It was like, okay, this is what I do. I'm good at it. I enjoy it to some extent, but there's no like real joy at producing this financial statement at the end of the day. I knew something was missing. So I had actually moved to a startup company and created their financial infrastructure and saw the culture, the environment, and saw the true impact of the role. So creating this financial infrastructure, giving them correct, timely numbers that they could use to make decisions. I was like, okay, this is doing something that I like that's not that exciting and making it exciting and bringing like passion to it and seeing the results from these founders, these CEOs, like has given me so much joy where I was like, okay, I need to spread this. And that's when I started my own business to do that with multiple companies.
It's so great that you saw there was actually a massive impact to be had here. Right. It wasn't just like this was a nice to have, but that I think I run into this too with my clients all the time, Lauren, is they just don't know their numbers. It's too scary and they don't want to look at it and they don't fully understand all the different ins and outs of it. And so they just don't want to know. Yeah. And it's so damaging because they can make a decision that really impacts their finances that they didn't see coming.
For sure. And I'll add to that because maybe they're not scared. But I've worked with a lot of founders that are like, well, I know it all in my head, so I don't really need to see it.
Oh, interesting.
I got it. We sell, it's easy. We sell 10 products at $10. We pay this, whatever. And there's a big knowledge gap if you're not looking and utilizing your financials to what you think is happening and what is actually happening. We have a client who was doing their kind of cash flow planning. So where am I at with cash? I've got this amount today. What's that going to look like in 6 months? And they're doing kind of back of the envelope. Well, I'll use an easy example. I know my product, if I sell it for 100, I pay $5, I'm making $95. So they're like, cool,
okay.
I've got $95 coming in next month, when it's like, well, you're not thinking about some of the other costs that are coming in, like the shipping of the product, or you're forgetting about the fees that you have to pay to receive the payment, or the full picture of what's happening.
Got it.
And so then they're saying, well, I'm going to have this amount of cash. And it's like, no, you're actually going to have less. And now you've made decision based off thinking you're going to have too much cash.
So if somebody says, yeah, I know those round numbers, it's actually going to be $50, not 95. Do people do that? And do they act like or feel like that's sufficient? And you've seen examples where it's actually not sufficient because other things can come into play as well.
Yes, absolutely. And this comes more with our what we do on the CFO front, which is the financial strategy, that forward planning. So maybe they're right. Their $50 is right, but they're not seeing enough of like, okay, what do I need to grow? I'm going to bring in 3 employees. So they're thinking, okay, 50K salary. There it is. Well, there's payroll taxes on that. There's workers' comp insurance. Like there's other pieces you have to add to just a salary. And then, if you're a growing company, like times 10 of just things you're not necessarily like thinking of in your head, if you're not mapping it all out and considering what are all the costs associated with this one decision.
One of my favorite things to do with clients, Lauren, is I'm like, don't just look at the money you've made this year. Go back and look at how much money you've made the entire time you've been in business. And I have people do that because it inspires them and they get excited and they're like, oh my gosh, I've actually made this much money, but maybe it happened over 10 years or it felt like it was really slow or whatever it was. They're not recognizing on paper, like you're saying, the true journey of the business and what's actually happened. It's such a powerful tool to have in black and white in front of you on the daily almost, right? I know people don't always look at their financials daily, but on the daily to be able to make really strategic decisions. And if it's in your head, things just kind of float out into the ether and you lose them. Yeah.
We kind of talk about the bookkeeping and just recording all your transactions is the rear view mirror. So what has happened? But then getting everything down on paper, like projecting, understanding what's going to happen is the go forward. And you need both to understand. You need to know where you've been to understand where you can go and how you can get there.
But what I love is how you're looking at really what's possible for the future based on truly understanding the numbers today. So one of the things I'd love to know as well, in your experience and all of the people that you've supported and helped, what do you think is kind of the biggest mistake business owners make when it comes to understanding their money?
Understanding what products are actually making. So for example, and I won't necessarily go down the rabbit hole, but there's cash versus accrual accounting. And cash is when you record the transactions when they go in and out of your bank account. And that's great. That's important to understand that cash flow. But depending on your business model, you may get paid up front for a whole year and never get any more money in, essentially, but you've got costs happening for the rest of the year. So it's hard to understand, well, of that 100K I made in January that hit revenue, like what was the cost associated with that? Like what did I really earn at the end of the day related to that 100K?
So it's kind of like what you were saying, even at the beginning about even tracking it in the first place, is really understanding how that money is going to be used inside the business truly. Not like but the top line number was this, but really understanding over time, even how the money ends up getting used inside the business.
Yeah. And understanding your gross profit. So your revenue minus cost of goods sold, essentially how much money you're making by selling that product or performing that service. Understanding it at the product level, because you may be, let's say you've got 4 major services and you're not realizing, well, that this one produces a lot of revenue. It has a lot of costs with it. So it's not making much money. So maybe it's not worth doing it all. and you need to put your time and energy and your dollars into a higher performing product or service. And that's what's hard to see when you're not laying it out in that format, because big numbers are misleading. So you're like, well, service number one, I made 500,000 in revenue. Why would I ever stop doing that? Well, because service number one cost you 450 to serve, so you only made 50K.
Right.
Is that enough? Is that enough to matter if you're making more other places? Like, and maybe the answer is yes, that's great. But understanding that and understanding what levers can you pull? Maybe we stop offering this service and we put our time and energy into a where it costs us 450, but we make $1 million. Like,
right.
Those kind of decisions.
And they're not telling you that. And I was like, that is so important. And I think I call that the entrepreneur porn that's out there in the world, but it's like that kind of fizzles into the psyche, I think, of some business owners without having the facts behind how much you're actually spending to make the money. And can you start to alter that? And without having those facts, it's really challenging. It really is powerful. And I hope, like, if anybody's listening or watching and you're like scared of your numbers, I hope you could start to see it does get fun, because the power of that knowledge, it can absolutely transform your business. And all of a sudden the business becomes really profitable because you're working with someone like Lauren, who's like, actually, if you tweak this or move that, or if you start focusing on this, this is where your revenue could end up heading. It's, oh my gosh, it's so much fun. So tell me, Lauren, a little bit, like, for you, what your business is like. I know you have several people that work with you. You have other people working on bookkeeping. Some are working on accounting. Can you talk a little bit about what this journey has been like for you as an entrepreneur, especially since you knew as a little one that you wanted to run your own business? What has this journey been like for you?
It was just me taking on clients, and I thought that was going to be it. It wasn't going to be like, not that that's not a business, but it wasn't going to be this big company. It was just going to be me. And I was focused on the more CFO suite. So the higher level accounting, the more strategic decisions, the, building out of the financial infrastructure for larger, like, high growth startups. And as that kind of evolved, I was like, they don't necessarily have a bookkeeper in place, or not someone that I can, rely on for accurate information. And so that kind of evolved into, well, let me gather my own bookkeepers that we can kind of tag team this and move faster, smarter, all of that. Being a numbers person, by trade, and I was like, I think that this is something that I could scale. And so kind of flip the switch to, all right, well, let me start building a team that can take on all this work, and I'll kind of move into the CEO role of running the actual business and growing our revenue and kind of scaling our processes. And that's essentially where we are today. There's people from, basic bookkeeping to controller, like higher level accounting for businesses that are larger in the 7 figures and a little bit more complex. And then and CFOs that can work from small pre-revenue businesses to multi-million-dollar businesses, focusing in that financial strategy, that where are we going and how are we getting there? And that's where some of our new products and services have come from, essentially, because we meet with people that don't want to outsource their bookkeeping. They want to do it themselves, which is totally fine, but they need a little bit more information. They're lost on what should I be doing every month to get in the right place? And so we offered this QuickBooks setup package where, one, if you're not on QuickBooks, we'll help get you set up. We'll teach you the basic things that you need to do every month to get your books in order. Or we'll just meet with you. Maybe you already have an account, but you don't think you're doing things right, or you need guidance on what to do. And we can answer your specific questions on, how should I do this? How should I set this up? Am I doing this right? And help you to, you want to do it yourself, but let's make sure you're doing it correctly, efficiently, and making the best use of your time if that's what you're doing. And it's great because that joy comes back, because it's like they've been struggling doing this. They have to do it, or they want to do it, but they know something's not right. And we can help solve that for them and give them a little bit more clarity. And at the end of the day, we're like, yay, that makes us happy.
I love it. I love it. That's great. By the way, you guys, underneath this video or in the show notes, if you're listening, we will have a link to that. Hey, help me set up my QuickBooks package from Lauren. It's something I've seen some of my other clients and students actually jump on the second Lauren talks about it. It's been super helpful for people. So if you're on that like borderline crossover of like, am I ready for QuickBooks? I don't know. Like definitely check that out because it's really cool. And I love the way, Lauren, that you have consistently added to your business based on what you see needs to be done, but also just by listening as to where people are getting stuck and being able to offer that information, because without understanding the money, there is no business. So it's so important. Well, Lauren, thank you so much for spending time with us today. I hope we've inspired some people to get their books in order. And if somebody listened today and they were like, holy cannoli, I need a little bit more Lauren in my life, where can people find you?
I am on LinkedIn, Lauren Colson, Colson. I love LinkedIn. You can also reach out to me at email by info@colsonstrategies.com. Stop by, say hey, ask your questions, see if we'd be a good fit. And we'd be so happy to help and meet you.
Thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Thank you. This was fun, Sarah.